am recording now.
Okay. Hi, guys. I am Anthony Scott of ToyHypeUSA.com.
Hi, and I'm Cisco Maldonado from Bandai America.
Very nice to see you again. How are you making out?
Things are good, just wrapping up things for the holidays, but it's been a great year and we're looking forward to a great 2021.
That's good. Yeah. Very nice to see you again. I last saw you at Toy Fair.
Right.
I haven't seen anyone since then, since basically
I don't
everything
think
shut
anyone
down.
have. Exactly.
So tell us about One Piece. What is it?
Wow, that's a loaded question. It's funny, as you were prepping for this interview, I was thinking like, okay, someone's going to ask me, what about One Piece? So I guess to anime fans, One Piece is one of the big three that always has existed out there, right? For more casual fans, the best way I can explain it is this, right? One Piece is a journey of a character. His name is Luffy, and he's your stereotypical adolescent boy trying to find his place in the world. And his goal is to be like king of all the pirates, right? And as a result of it, he is starting to search for this treasure. And it's a huge treasure that is all in One Piece, right? That's the titular name of the saga is One Piece, like one piece of treasure that's out there. And once he finds his treasure, then he can rightfully claim his, title of king of all the pirates. That's just the short log line, right? Like this saga has been going on for years. There's like 1,000 episodes, and
97 it launched in Japan.
Yeah, and so it's been just a fantastic show, and it's a commitment. You start watching, and there are scores of characters and locations, and people drop in and drop out, which is a very complicated way of saying. To call it a saga is an understatement. To call it an epic is getting a little bit warmer. But it's a fantastic piece of storytelling all the same.
That's good. Yeah, it's a fun franchise.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still getting caught up on some of these Japanese anime shows. There's just so many of them. But one of my favorite brands has always been Dragon Ball Z. I didn't have any One Piece figures to put on display. So I just quickly set this up just so people can have something besides us to look at, as we talk. And I know people like to look at colorful action figures as people talk. Mm-hmm. So I just quickly grabbed a bunch of them and set that up right there. But as I was researching One Piece, I was astonished that it launched in '97. I don't remember it from back then.
Yeah.
When was it brought over to the US? That I couldn't find.
Well, with over-the-top streaming platforms and like your Funimations and Crunchyrolls of the world and like anime channels, right? That's sort of a loaded question of when did it make it over to the States? It really depends on how you saw it for the first time, right? So it depends on in Japan, it's been around for years, right? And obviously it started with the manga like years and years ago. So needless to say, and even just recently, it's been on Netflix for like the last 4 or 5 months, right? With the original series, and it's going to be continuing on. So depending on where your viewer is jumping on, I would recommend starting with one because it's very easy to get lost in the series. Yeah. But it's been around for a while and it's still going strong. I had mentioned like the big 3 anime that are out there. One Piece is one of them, Naruto's the other one, and Bleach, right? And so of those 3, basically it's One Piece is the only one that keeps going strong, and it's not losing any steam. So when we were creating Anime Heroes, our original thought from the very beginning was, if we're going to bring the best anime action figures to market, like what do we do, right? And you can't not have One Piece in there. It was just a matter of how we're going to make it happen, how we're going to actually execute on the figures, and how we're going to let the world know that this great new thing is coming to a store near you.
Yeah. Well, that's good. It's very exciting to see this still out there after all these years later. Not too many franchises make it this long.
Would you like to take a look at the figures?
I would love to. Let's take a look there.
So here's what I'm going to do. Here at the Bandai Studios, I am going to move this back a little bit, and I'm going to change my camera. So bear with me, because I am the only one. I don't have a necessary director of production here. So I am going to see. Nope, that's the wrong one. That's just, here we go. Come on. Where are we? There we go. How about that?
Ah, look at that.
Isn't that cool? Right?
That is very cool.
So there's a little story that I like to tell. So obviously, when you're creating action figures, depending on which characters you're going to do, you kind of wonder, like, how are they going to make this action figure, right? So if we look at Luffy here, right, in the middle, like, he's a skinny character, right? And to say you're making a skinny action figure, like, as a toy guy, that's kind of scary, right? Like, how are they going to pull this off, right? How is it not going to look weird? And so when they showed me the model and I opened it up, I'm like, yeah, they were actually able to pull it off. So if I get in a little close, let me move Sanji over here. If I get a close up here, right? Like, if you look at like the detail, like, that's just cool.
Yeah.
Right? Like, from the hair to the expression on his eyes to the sash and everything, like, that's really cool. He has this little hat here that's going to be removable and it comes off. So that's Luffy, right? And then
Now,
over
is
here,
that a working model or is that the final figure?
that's a working model. So the action figures are actually in production now. Like, they turned on the machine and they're cranking them out, but this is when they said they're going to look like this, right? And obviously it's not 100% because on a mass scale, but like, yeah, I'm not going to be surprised when these guys roll off the line. I'm going to be like, yep, that's what it looks like, right?
Yeah.
And then over here we have Zoro, right? So, you know, everything from just the 3 swords that you see, right? So sword number 1, sword number 2, sword number 3, right? Just the detail from like his jacket and even like his expression, right? Like, it's just spot on. And my colleagues joke at me, like, what Bandai does best, right? It's spot on interpretations from the action figure to the anime, right? And back and forth, right? Like, that's what you want as a fan. You want to own a piece of the content and bring it home. And whether you're a fan or not, like, this is just a cool action figure to have. So that's Zoro, our favorite swordsman of all time. And then over here on this side, we're going to have Sanji, right? And so again, like, even if I can bring him up without getting out of focus, like, even like the facial expressions to like his little leg of fire here, right? Like the color of his suit, like, this is what you want, right? You want fans to really say, yes, looks just like the animation, right? So we're really happy of what we've been able to do.
Okay. How does that fire piece work? Does that attach to his leg?
Yeah. So in the model, it's actually all one piece right now, but if I can kind of move this whole thing out a little bit. So like, his foot fits in here, right? So this plastic fire actually comes off, right? So it's like an accessory in the box.
Right.
And so then, you know, you switch it out whether you want or not, and it fits on either leg, right? I mean, obviously, if you want to do it the right way, it's going to be on the right leg, right? As opposed to like the other. But yeah, obviously, you know, you can mix and match and do what you want, but that'll be one of the accessories that are in there.
Okay, that's cool. Do they come with interchangeable hands too?
They do. So let me switch out of here so you can see my pretty mug again. Where are we? Yes, they'll come with a set of hands, right? Some are going to be fists, some are going to be outstretched hands, just depending on the figure, right? And how we do it. Like, so for Zoro, he might have just one set of hands versus Sanji, which might have 2 sets of hands, just given, you know, the same number of total accessories you can mix and match.
Right.
And depending on
3 swords, that makes sense.
Right. And if they have a, you know, a signature pose, right? So obviously, like, Naruto is something different, right? And he'll have like this thing going on. So, but that's his character, right? Luffy's not going to have that. So we got to make sure we have the one punch, one fist thing. So that'll be for Luffy. And then making sure that for Zoro, he's got to be able to hold his sword. So his hands are going to be open.
Right. All right. So I saw on Amazon there were about, I don't know, half dozen more characters already up for pre-order that actually wasn't in the press release. How many characters have you guys planned so far?
Well, for now, we have the original 3, right? That we have for our first wave, right? And so for the 6.5-inch action figure, so stepping back, there's lots of One Piece figures that are out there that are like statues, right? And so they're non-articulated. Some are like higher end statues that are made out of resin and they're more like display things, right? As opposed to like posable things. So those have been out there for a couple years, but this is the first time there's actually action figures for them as we understand action figures to be, right? And so we have the first 3 that are here. and we have plans for another 5 or 6, and I can't reveal what they're going to be, but they're going to be awesome. But that's part of what we do, right? Part of what we do is saying, like, what would fans want to see in the next One Piece figure to come out there, right? And we look at everything from the form factor, right? Like, how difficult is it to make this character in these iterations of what it might be, right? Like, using Dragon Ball as an example, right? You have a Goku, you got the red hair, you got the blue hair, you got the blonde hair. Like, which version is going to make the most sense? And we look at, and Luffy's no different, right? Like, Luffy has different forms, right? And we have to figure out, is it going to make sense, right? So, yes, Luffy can stretch his arms out like 16 miles, but like, would that make sense for an action figure, right? Like, how would you even package it in the first place? So for something like that, we'll be like, maybe it's not the best idea unless we were to figure out a way to make it happen in a box, right? So depending on just physics and the real world of how something works versus what do fans want to see next, and what are the characters that we really want to get fans involved in? Because ultimately, one of the other goals of the Anime Heroes brand is for folks who might not be familiar with One Piece, but see these really cool action figures, they might take a look at it. They're being like, oh, this is cool. What's this One Piece thing, right? And they Google it and they go like, oh, it's on Netflix, it's on Crunchyroll. And then they start watching it and then they'll be like, wow, this is a fantastic piece. And there's 1,000 episodes, right? Like, let me get a chair, right? And then from there, then we have more fans that builds out the overall, enjoyment of the brand.
So let me ask you this.
Sure.
Any plans for Build-A-Figure parts or pieces or characters in this line or future offerings?
That's something that we've thought of, right? So I know that Dragon Ball has that. So you can like build your Broly or you can build your Zamasu and stuff like that. Nothing is impossible, right? Anime Heroes as an overall brand is still relatively young. We've only been doing this. This is obviously our third IP. We've been doing it for about a year, a little more than a year and a half now. It's something that we can think about. We just need to figure out if we were to do a Build-A-Figure, how many characters would be involved to build that 6th figure, right? Yeah. And are they all themed in a way such that characters 1 through 5 will build character 6, but all 6 are together in a theme, right? That's the tough part, right? So if there's a character that sort of makes sense to build that figure into, does it make sense for the whole collection, right? And so since we're just getting started, right, we're trying to figure out like, okay, what's going to be this next iteration, right? So that's not to say that we wouldn't, once we have enough characters in the line, we could re-release a different version of Luffy with a Build-A-Figure part, right? So, but we're just getting started on it. And so we really want to see how much the fans really gravitate toward these new figures, right? And then if there's enough demand for it and we get a lot of chatter, because we listen on like Twitter and Instagram and Reddit in terms of like what fans are looking for. And if enough people tell us what to do, we'll do it.
Okay. That's cool. So besides the hands and the swords, things like that, and fire attachment, are there any more accessories that come with the figures?
It would depend on what the figure is, right? And if it makes sense. So if there's a character and he has like the slingshot, we might include the slingshot, right? Like that'll be something. Or if it's obviously there's Luffy's hat, but like if we were to do Shanks, for example, right? Like would we have Shanks' hat in there, or would he be hatless Shanks, right? Because that's sort of part of what the story is all about. So it really depends on which characters we want to add to the collection.
All right. Any plans for store exclusives or chase figures at this time?
At this time, no. We want to be able to release as broad as possible. Just again, to make sure that like people really want One Piece, right? Like part of the challenge is, it takes about 18 months from inception to actually build a figure to it's in store, right? So we want to make sure, and I have to guess what fans are going to like a year and a half, 2 years from now, right? To make sure that, the anime is still going strong and there's going to be enough demand for these figures, right? I don't want to miss the boat, right? So to create an exclusive, while not out of the question, we want to make sure if this thing takes off, right? Like if this thing starts selling like hotcakes and they're sold out everywhere, trust me, we're going to start pumping as many of these figures out there as we need to. But we just announced like last 2 weeks. So it's a little bit of a wait and see game, right? But what we've seen so far for like people pre-selling and just the level of enthusiasm on social for these characters coming out, it looks pretty good so far.
How has the fan reaction been on the figure themselves?
It depends when you were to ask what they are. So I would say over the summer, like some fans were like, they were betting like, oh, I bet they're going to do One Piece, right? I bet they're going to do this show, right? And then there's all these conversations of, I hope they come out with Luffy first. Like they better have Sanji, or no, they wouldn't want to have this character, right? Which is what we want to see. We want to see people engaged in having those conversations.
Sure.
And I think once we announced it, it was a pretty good affirmation that like, yeah, these are the three that you want to have, right? No one's saying like, how come you didn't include this character, right? You're always going to have sort of onesie twosies, just depending on like, I'm a fan of this character versus that character. Are you going to have them, right? So what's really going to be interesting is when we announce what the next characters are going to be in the line, right? And so maybe we'll talk to the fans and we're saying like, who do you want to see next, right? And then we'll start that conversation over again. So all your One Piece fans out there, think at the top of your head, if you had to add 2 or 3 new characters to this mix, who would they be, right? And the odds are you're probably going to guess right? I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag just yet. And we'll probably figure out a fun way to how to announce that the next one's coming out. But it shouldn't be a big shock in terms of which characters are going to come out next.
Okay, cool. Is there anything else you can tell us about what fans could look forward to potentially in this line, or
so
how many are supposedly planned should this pan out? Be a massive hit.
Right. Well, I mean, we already know as a property, One Piece is a massive hit, right? Like it wouldn't be around this long if it wasn't, right? Which means there's a lot of fans out there who have an affinity for the brand and the characters, right?
Mhm.
So I think it speaks to the overall strength of just anime in general, right? Like folks are watching more anime now than they ever have before, and they're discovering it, right? So obviously there's years of content already backed up, and it takes a lot more time to make content than to actually watch it, right? Which means at a certain point in time, people are going to have to discover new shows, right? And so if you're watching show ABC and you're kind of done with it and you're looking around for something different, right? That's an opportunity. And especially with anime and long form content, people who might not be super familiar with it, all of a sudden they start clicking around on their favorite platform and they realize like, oh my gosh, there's like 300 hours of content that exist out there, right? Like don't get a dog, right? Because this is a commitment too. And they're going to start watching, which means they're going to get used to a behavior of watching anime, which is what we're seeing right now. And folks are really going to get attached to these characters, right? Which is really, really good news for Anime Heroes as a brand, because the next question that I'm thinking of, besides just who's going to be next to accompany Luffy, Sanji, and Zoro, it's what's going to be that next anime title to find its way into Anime Heroes, right? Okay. And again, for anime fans out there, you're going to have lots of different opinions, and please put out this one, right? Like everyone was saying, I bet it's going to be One Piece, right? And I'm sure there's bets going on right now, folks looking at this saying like, what's going to be next, right? Yeah. Off the top of your head, there's probably 5 or 6 that you can think of like, yes, that's going to be the next one. 2 out of those 3, you're probably going to guess right. And so it's a really exciting time for this line, as well as just action figures in general for this anime. I wouldn't even say it's a fad, right? Like this thing is mainstream now. It's on Netflix, right? They have their own original anime that they're making. So it's good for the industry and it's good for anime fans everywhere.
That's good. That's good. I wish you guys the best on this.
Thank you.
Looks a real fun line, and I hope it does well. I noticed you have those stands. Whenever I try to display stuff, people say that their figures fall off the shelves. Where do you get those stands for those?
You can get them at any hobby shop, even if you go online and just type in like action figure stands. They're just like made of wire with a little pedestal, right? Okay. And so you adjust them. I'm actually surprised they don't sell them more. Like if you're interested in buying this, buy this with you too. But you know what? If more people start buying action figures and they start telling people, here's how I display them, I'll imagine over time, someone's going to get smart enough to say like, hey, why don't you use this little extra to put them in a position so they don't fall over, right, under their own weight, and you can sort of, have your own collection, because that's what they're for, right? Like they're posable statues, right? That's what they're best for, right? And you want to change them up a little bit. You want to be able to make things a little bit different.
You do, yeah. And you don't want to keep picking them up as you lift them put them in like a flying pose or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah, I've seen
So-
guys do stuff with like fishing wire and stuff, right? In terms of
Yeah.
they're making like a little set. So yeah, I mean, you're limited only by your imagination, and that's part of what this is. Like these things are the endurable, right? Like they're not going to break on you. It's not like they're made of porcelain, and if you try to put them in the wrong way, his arm's going to snap off, right? So it's just a matter of how do you have them in such a way where they're going to balance so that it looks cool, and you create your own favorite scene. That's what they're made for.
That's cool. You know, another idea, you guys could make stands or bases just for the One Piece figures. Should this really pan out, and maybe put the One Piece logo on there, make the stand.
Yep, that's a great idea. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, because part of the overall process is what do you do with the figure once you take it home, right?
Yeah.
Some people are going to leave it in the box. Some people are going to buy two, one to sort of do whatever that is, right? So that's actually a great idea. It's how you use the product before, during, and after.
It is, yeah. I'm always looking for new ways to photograph, display, stuff like that.
Mhm.
And you're right, there's really a lot of talented people photographing and setting up their poses these days. It's just really phenomenal what people
Yeah.
can create
Yeah,
nowadays.
and I think that's growing more now than ever before. Like some people photograph birds, right? And there's
Yeah.
a growing like there's Facebook communities online saying, "Look what I did this week with my collection," right? So I
Yeah.
think we're going to see a lot more of that in the future.
Yeah, social media really changed it.
Absolutely.
People do. So thank you so much for spending the time talking to us.
You're welcome.
It's what is it, the 23rd? It's almost Christmas Eve.
Almost.
So I'm surprised you guys are still working. I know other
Well-
companies are off.
Well, you know what? They say the sun never sets on Bandai, right? So
Yeah.
we're always out there, and we're here for the fans, right? And we listen
Yeah.
to what fans want, and we got plenty more, and we're looking for a fantastic 2021.
I can't wait to see what comes next. And I hope fans really react to this. And I hope it's a huge, huge success for you.
Oh, thank you so much, Anthony. I appreciate it.
Very welcome. Thank you so much again. And happy holidays to you.
Happy holidays
and-
to you
and
too.
To everyone at Bandai. I am Anthony Scott of toyhypeusa.com. Thank you so much for joining us. I had an amazing time talking to you, learning about One Piece. I've been researching it the past 2 weeks. And again, I couldn't believe that it started out in 97. I think it might have been before Pokemon, if I'm not mistaken.
Might have been, yeah.
Because I think Pokemon was maybe the following year in Japan, something like that.
Yeah, I'd have to double check my records, but they're
Yeah.
they're contemporaries. It's around the same time, and they're both
Yeah.
great properties that we're happy to look to the fans and give them what we want.
Yeah, absolutely. So happy holidays. Thank you again. And
Okay.
I hope to see you at Toy Fair.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.